This test measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. The listening section is divided into two separately timed parts. In each part, you will listen to one conversation and two lectures. You will hear each conversation or lecture only one time. After each conversation or lecture, you will answer some questions about it. The questions typically ask about the main idea and supporting details. Some questions ask about a speaker's purpose or attitude. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Your notes will not be scored. If you need to change the volume while you listen, click on the volume icon at the top of the screen. In some questions, you will see this icon. This means that you will hear but not see part of the question. Some of the questions have special directions. These directions appear in a gray box on the screen. Most questions are worth 1 point. If a question is worth more than 1 point, it will have special directions that indicate how many points you can receive. You must answer each question. After you answer, click on Next. Then click on OK to confirm your answer and go on to the next question. After you click on OK, you cannot return to previous questions. If you are using the untimed mode, you may return to previous questions, and you may listen to each conversation and lecture again. Remember that prior exposure to the conversations, lectures, and questions could lead to an increase in your section scores and may not reflect a score you would get when seeing them for the first time. During this practice test, you may click the pause icon at any time. This will stop the test until you decide to continue. You may continue the test in a few minutes or at any time during the period that your test is activated. In an actual test, and if you are using timed mode, a clock at the top of the screen will show you how much time is remaining. The clock will not count down while you are listening. The clock will count down only while you are answering the questions. To a conversation between a student and a facilities manager at the university.
Hi, I'm Melanie, the one who's been calling?
From the singing group, right?
From the choir.
Right, the choir. It's nice to finally meet you in person. So, you're having problems with...
Noise. Like I explained on the phone, we've always had our rehearsals in the Lincoln Auditorium, every day at 3 o'clock, and it's always worked just great. But the past few weeks, with the noise, it's been a total nightmare since construction started next door on the science hall.
Oh, that's right. They're building that addition for new laboratories.
Exactly. Anyway, ever since they started working on it, it's been so noisy we can barely hear ourselves think.
Let alone sing.
Forget about singing. I mean, we keep the windows down and everything, but once those bulldozers get going, those machines are loud. We've already had to cut short 2 rehearsals, and we've got a concert in 6 weeks.
Well, that's not good. I'm assuming you've tried to reschedule your rehearsals? They don't do construction work at night.
I ran that by the group, but there were just too many. Evenings are really hard. It seems like everyone in the choir already has plans, and some even have classes at night.
And what about the music building?
Originally we were booked in one of the rehearsal rooms in the music building, but then we switched with the jazz ensemble. They're a much smaller group, and they said the acoustics, the sound in that room, was better for them. So having us move to a bigger space like the Lincoln Auditorium seemed like a reasonable idea.
But now...
all that noise. I don't know. I just wonder if the jazz ensemble knew what was going to happen.
Well, that wouldn't be very nice.
No, but it really was quite a coincidence. Anyway, now the music building's fully booked. Mornings, afternoons, everything. We just need a quiet space, and it has to have a piano.
A piano? Of course, Some of the other auditoriums have pianos, but that's not going to be easy.
You think they're pretty booked up?
Probably, but it can't hurt to check. What about Bradford Hall? I remember a piano in the old student center there.
At this point, we'd be grateful for any quiet place.
How flexible can you be on times? You said no evenings, but what if I can't find something open at 3 o'clock? Can you move earlier or later?
I wish I could say another time would be okay, but you know how it is. Everybody's already got commitments for the whole semester. 2:30 or 3:30 would probably be okay, but I don't think we could go much outside that.
Well, check with me tomorrow morning. I should have found something by then. It might not be ideal.
As long as it's got a piano and nobody's putting up a building next door, we'll be happy.
What does the woman want the man to do? What problem concerning Lincoln Auditorium is mentioned? What does the woman imply about having rehearsals in the evening? What is the woman's attitude toward the jazz ensemble? Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
How flexible can you be on times? You said no evenings, but what if I can't find something open at 3 o'clock? Can you move earlier or later?
I wish I could say another time would be okay, but you know how it is.
What does the woman imply when she says this?
I wish I could say another time would be okay, but you know how it is.
Listen to part of a lecture in a geology class.
Now, there are some pretty interesting caves in parts of the western United States, especially in national parks. There's one park that has over 100 caves, including some of the largest ones in the world. One of the more interesting ones is called Lechuguilla Cave. Lechuguilla has been explored a lot in recent decades. It's a pretty exciting place, I think. It was mentioned only briefly in your books. So, can anyone remember what it said? Ellen?
It's the deepest limestone cave in the U.S.?
That's right. It's one of the longest and deepest limestone caves, not just in the country, but in the world. Now, what else?
Well, it was formed because of sulfuric acid, right?
That's it. Yeah. Now, what happens is you have deep underground oil deposits, and there are bacteria. Here, let me draw a diagram. Part of the limestone rock layer is permeated by water from below. Those curly lines are supposed to be cracks in the rock. Below the water table and rock is oil. Bacteria feed on this oil and release hydrogen sulfide gas. This gas, this hydrogen sulfide, rises up and mixes with oxygen in the underground water that sits in the cracks and fissures in the limestone. And when hydrogen sulfide reacts with the oxygen in the water, the result of that is sulfuric acid. Okay? Sulfuric acid eats away at limestone very aggressively, so you get bigger cracks and then passageways being formed along the openings in the rock. And it's all underground. Yes, Paul?
So that water, it's not flowing, right? It's still?
Yes. So there's two kinds of limestone caves. In about 90% of them, you have water from the surface, streams, waterfall, or whatever. Moving water that flows through cracks found in the limestone. It's the moving water itself that wears away at the rock and makes passageways. Also, in surface water, there's a weak acid, carbonic acid. Not sulfuric acid, but carbonic acid that helps dissolve the rock. With a little help from this carbonic acid, moving water forms most of the world's limestone caves. When I was researching this for a study a few years ago, I visited a couple of these typical limestone caves. And they were all very wet, from streams and rivers. This flowing water carved out the caves and the structures inside them.
But not Lechuguilla?
Dry as a bone. Well, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's safe to say that it's sulfuric acid and not moving water that formed Lechuguilla Cave and those few other ones like it. In fact, there's no evidence that flowing water has ever gone in or out of the cave. So it's like a maze. You have passageways all around. There are wide passages, narrow ones at all different depths, like underground tunnels in the limestone. And since they were created underground and not from flowing surface water, not all of these passageways have an opening to the outside world. And there's other evidence that flowing water wasn't involved in Lechuguilla. We've said that sulfuric acid dissolves limestone, right? And forms the passageways. What else does sulfuric acid do? Paul?
Leaves a chemical residue.
Gypsum, right?
Yep. You'll find lots of gypsum deposited at Lechuguilla. And as we know, gypsum is soluble in water. So if there were flowing water in the cave, it would dissolve the gypsum. This is part of what led us to the realization that Lechuguilla is in that small group of waterless caves. And Lechuguilla is pretty much dormant now. It's not really forming anymore. But there's other ones like it, for example, in Mexico, that are forming. And when cave researchers go to explore them, they see and smell the sulfuric acid and gases at work. Whew, now, it's something else. Now think of rotten eggs. And it's not just the smell. Explorers even need to wear special masks to protect themselves from the gases in these caves. Okay, Paul?
Yeah, how about what these caves look like on the inside?
Oh, well, the formations are really something. There's such variety there, like nothing anywhere else in the world. Some of them are elaborate looking, like decorations, and a lot of them are made of gypsum and can be up to 20 feet long. It's pretty impressive.
What is the main purpose of the lecture?